So, it's back. Slice of Pie, the newsish show, is back on this channel. Used to be semi-weekly, now we're going to do it about monthly because that's enough time for us to get enough tech news for me to make a video that I think will work pretty well. So, if you haven't been here, hello and welcome to A Slice of Pie, the newsish show that we now do on this channel. And instead of actually like going topic to topic like we used to, I actually intend to go a lot deeper and talk more about things. So instead of this being more like a tech linked, think of this more like a WAN, kind of, with a lot less hot takes, probably, since there's no second host to, co-pilot this. So let's get right into it. This awkward and unusual show that I am now doing on this channel. Hello and welcome. My name is Wolfie. You're watching GreaterThanPie, and today we're going to be talking about tech news and some channel news, all sorts of cool stuff. And a little bit later, we'll talk about how this show is going to work in the future and all that fun stuff. So let's not dance around it too much longer. Let's actually talk about some tech news. So if you've been on YouTube and you've been in the tech space, you know that AMD has launched probably the best processor for gaming that gamers could possibly want. A price that's not horrible. $450 is a lot, but a CPU that is easy to cool, very easy to power, and can top the charts. 7800 X3D just recently came out. Now, what's interesting about this processor is that it makes the other X3D processors look bad, which is probably why it was separated from the rest when those launched a couple of weeks ago. So now we've got this brand new processor that's incredibly cool, incredibly easy to power, and doesn't have all of the iffy bits that came with the other X3D processors, and it looks really compelling. Not only that, but from what the benchmarks are showing, it is a pretty beneficial processor for specifically small form factor builds, or even those who are just building extreme systems. I am very much considering it for my personal gaming rig because it's going to be a small form factor build, and that means I need to save on power somewhere, especially because I plan on using a 7900 XTX inside the same build, and that's also going to be in a Cooler Master NR200P. I actually have a video coming up soon where we test fit that thing for water cooling. It's actually really cool. So if you're not subscribed, maybe get subscribed if you want to see that. But for the most part, the consensus is that it is a good processor for a specific type of person, gaming, focused people, and really doesn't have all of the strengths that Ryzen itself comes with, which is multiple cores running at very high speeds. And if you're doing anything other than gaming, you probably are better served by the cheaper processors in the stack, which includes the 7700X. And recently, I heard murmurs of some Ryzen 9s dropping below the price of this processor. And recently, we also found out that the price of the other X3D processors is also dropping. So this processor has disrupted AMD, even though it's made by AMD. Nvidia is disabling resizable bar in some games. So resizable bar, or on AMD's side, smart access memory, is a feature that can easily improve the performance of a GPU and a CPU in a system. AMD has a cohesive ecosystem in which they control both the CPU and the GPU, and it just works. Resizable bar, though, is Nvidia's solution to AMD's feature, and it never really saw the same level of support as smart access memory. And unfortunately, it seems that it is actually hindering the GPUs in a couple of games, particularly the Horizon games, and just about everything that's come out of Sony Interactive for PC, which is not great because, well, it ended up causing AMD to have an abnormal advantage on systems that had this feature enabled. Interestingly enough, resizable bar is pretty much necessary in order to run an ARC-based GPU. It's funny, this feature seems to really only negatively affect one GPU manufacturer, and I'm sure it's something that they're currently working on fixing. Right now, certain games will actually disable the feature inside their driver. This is not unlike when AMD had to do the same thing for certain Radeon features in some applications. Overall, I'm glad that Nvidia did address this, and I really hope that they can get resizable bar working on their GPUs properly. Asus, oh my goodness, Asus announced something way too close to April Fool's Day. The ROG Ally is one interesting piece of hardware. It is positioning itself to be a Steam Deck handheld competitor kind of situation with the ability to dock into an external GPU, a feature that I've been requesting since the Nintendo Switch. So I'm kind of excited about that. But looking at its specs and knowing how Asus is, this thing's probably going to cost a lot, because it's got a 1080p screen, and that's pretty much all we know about it. We don't really know what the GPU, APU situation is going to be inside of this device, but from Linus's impressions, since he was one of like 2 people who actually got to put their hands on it, it seems like it's going to position itself as a premium handheld gaming device, which I am not against because, well, it's a mainstream handheld device made by a mainstream company, which is good for this weird micro ecosystem that is handheld PC gaming. Additionally, 1xPlayer is also going to be releasing a new handheld with mystery new APUs that they announced after the Ally stuff came out. And I'm not exactly sure how to pronounce this company name because it's a spin-off of 1xPlayer. It's this one. I'm going to try it. Aokezoe? I don't know. It's a made up word, I think. Maybe. I'm not even sure. It looks very interesting. It looks like, well, almost a Steam Deck. And supposedly it's going to have a brand new Ryzen 7000 APU. I'm surprised that this space is moving so fast, but I'm excited. I did an entire video about all of the different handhelds coming out. Speaking of those handhelds, though, the Razer's Edge may not have been as useless as I thought. Yeah, I will admit when I'm wrong, and Razer might have fixed the one thing that could make that device actually useful, and that is an OS-based screen remapping tool. And it seems that Razer has actually added that feature. Recently, they made an announcement video showing this feature working. This unfortunately will not work in PUBG, specifically because PUBG is looking for it. But in some games that were only touchscreen only, such as Genshin Impact, which should have controller support, it's gonna work. And games like Muse Dash, which I play on my phone actually, that game could actually work really well with controller support. Overall, I'd be interested in trying it, but I'm not sure if I'm $300 worth of interested in trying it. And I would be remiss if I didn't talk about the Steam Deck, because it went on sale. Yeah, during the Steam sale, it actually went on sale. It wasn't a major discount, and it did go on sale entirely before the Index ever had one. Yeah, that's right. Valve's VR headset from 3-4 years ago still has never been on sale, but the Steam Deck has. It actually goes to show how much mainstream appeal the Steam Deck actually has. And that Valve is really interested in moving units. Mid-range gamers, rejoice. Yeah, we're finally getting them. GPUs around the $500 mark, which doesn't sound great since it's still pretty high and expensive for a lot of people. We have seen, thanks to some manufacturers, the RTX 4070. Now, these were quickly pulled when they got accidentally leaked. But early reports are saying that they're about 19% slower than a 4070 Ti and probably about the speed of a 3080, which realistically, cost per dollar isn't great. Actually, now that I'm thinking about that and I said it out loud, what was the MSRP of the 3080? 1 second. We're going to do this live. So the 3080 was $699, and the projected price of the 4070 is $599. So for $100 less, you're getting more or less the same level of GPU. That's actually kind of problematic. So I actually saw this as a possible problem, especially with how the manufacturers have been naming their GPUs this generation. You have the 7900 XTX, the 7900 XT, and those are 2 GPUs in a completely different class from one another. They're almost uncomparable. And unfortunately, the 7800 XT and maybe XTX, depending on how they decide to name these things, could actually be, well, about the same performance as a 6800 XT, or maybe possibly slightly better. It's weird how it's all going to line up. And that's just from the AMD side. On Nvidia's side, you've got this issue with the 4090, the 4080, and the 4070 Ti, in which the actual 4070 is going to be a 3080 and equivalent for only $100 less than that same GPU launched for. All I can say is GPU inflation is not really going to be working out very well for this next generation. And I personally would recommend that if you are waiting for a sub $500 GPU, you're probably going to get 3070 level of performance. If you can get that performance for about $500, you're probably going to end up in a better position than if you bought a new, let's say, 4060. All right, I'm just going to cut in here. It's the middle of the night on the day of the launch of the 4070. Yeah, between me recording and this video going live, unfortunately and fortunately, the 4070 came out. All the information I said about the rumors is 100% true. So, yeah, it's a very disappointing launch. But it's not all doom and gloom in the GPU space, because there are some cool high-end stuff that I personally do like, such as the Liquid Devil being back. The Red Devil also came back with some interesting features, such as a changeable backplate, which is really cool. But the Liquid Devil specifically, which is a collaboration between EK and Power Color to make a GPU that is water cooling focused first, and it's on sale now. In fact, actually, the best place to buy it is EK's site, because they have it at MSRP. If you buy it on Newegg, you're going to actually pay an upsell charge that is probably not Newegg's fault, because I'm pretty sure it's supposed to be sold on EK's site only, or select retailers. I'm not 100% sure how it's supposed to be working, but it is really cool. You can buy it, and yeah, you've got a water-cooled GPU right out of the box. But not to be outdone, again, a Nvidia and Asus partnership with Noctua has occurred. Again, not necessarily on the top tier GPU, but if you miss your poop brown fans, rejoice, because the Noctua Asus 4080 is real, and it is coming out soon. And from what people said about the last one, it's probably going to be one of the quietest, most powerful cards you could possibly buy if you have the case room for it, because it is going to take some serious case girth in order to fit that thing. But at least you can have your fans match if you use Noctua products. Granted, Chromax is a thing, and I use the Chromax fans all the time. So yeah, still a cool GPU. Now, another thing that seemed like it could be an April Fool's prank, VR chat is coming to mobile. Now, you're probably wondering, VR chat mobile? It's not as weird as you would think, because, well, the Quest, we got one right back there, is just a modified ARM processor. Not even really that modified. It's just a specialized ARM processor that runs a mobile version of Android that has been created specifically for VR. So realistically, this is not out of the precedent. In fact, the same code that works to make the Quest work is exactly what VR chat is going to be using to make the mobile port work. It's just desktop mode for mobile users. And unfortunately, the VR chat community is really not happy about it. And it's mainly for one reason, and it has a lot to do with the Quest. My main headset is actually a Valve Index these days, and I had a Rift S because the Quest has limitations on avatar sizes and all sorts of funky things with worlds, and PC VR is very different if you're playing it through the lens of a Quest than it is if you're playing it through the lens of an actual PC VR headset. And one of the things that the Quest did that the VR chat community did not like is it brought forward a lot of kids. When VR chat first came out, it was full of children. I remember vividly the number of people who played VR chat on desktop when it first came out was exponentially higher than anybody who had VR. Anybody who had VR was like a legend back in those days. And I personally played it back then. And my fiance Gamer Guts got completely swarmed because she was a girl on the platform. Like, you know that meme of like a girl in a Call of Duty lobby where it went, girl, that literally happened. I watched her get swarmed. I ended up using female avatars in VR chat because I just needed to like distract from the fact that she was there. So she became a mute before like that was a whole thing. VR chat mutes is its own special thing. But she still is mute in VR chat unless we're in a lobby with people that we know and trust. Point is, what is the point? Oh yes, VR chat was filled with children, and then that slowly died out, and VR users became the norm. And those users were mostly adults because PC VR is just too expensive to hand over to a child. And then the Quest came out, and it brought VR, good VR, to everyone. And so it brought the children back to VR chat. And with the children came the questioning, an event in which people started hanging out in non-Quest friendly worlds to avoid children. Because VR chat's not exactly a child appropriate place most of the time. And it only really solidified our disdain for standalone VR just a little bit. I would consider myself our in this because I did get like attacked by a child, and I never once went back to a Quest world again. I haven't been able to see the black cat in years. Moving on. So the community is mostly up in arms because this will probably result in even more children on the platform, which is already not a thing that we want, but it will result in more money into the platform, which could be good in the long run. Not exactly sure. It is a free platform that has barely any monetization, so I'm not entirely sure what their goal is with this, but it is real. It is happening, and the community really doesn't like it. 3D Mark now has an FSR benchmark, and it works across every GPU because FSR works across every GPU. It did already have a DLSS specific benchmark, and so now having one that can actually compare apples to apples and different FSR qualities to one another, and I did run it, and it works pretty well. It does show a bit of a theory that I had about FSR really only gaining about 10 frames per second at its quality preset. And this seems to be a repeatable thing that I can even test inside this benchmark. But we may have a video focusing on it a little bit more soon because I really want to compare the various versions of FSR quality and kind of talk about how they all work in the grand scheme of things. So it's cool. It's free this time. There is no paywall. So if you don't have it, you can go ahead and get it. By the way, if you need 3D Mark, wait till the Steam sales to go on sale for like $1. No joke. 3D Mark, PC Mark, every single time. I bought mine for like $5. I'm being honest. $5, I got everything. But you know what's not great? Bad PC ports. And they are on the rise this year. We've only had like 4 months out of this year, and we've already had like 2 bad ports. Specifically, The Last of Us just came out on PC, and it's not great. It was delayed, and I think part of that was because they were trying to delay it due to the show being so popular. But unfortunately, the port came out and it wasn't the best port in the world. Hogwarts Legacy was the other game this year that really didn't have a great port. And it's kind of like the can it run Hogwarts Legacy is like, can it run Crisis because of optimization issues? That's actually one of the weird things that people forget about the whole can it run Crisis thing is it was actually optimization that made it not able to run Crisis. You look at games like Doom Eternal, and Doom Eternal are like so optimized. It is not even funny that it runs at like 200 frames per second, looks the way it does, and can run at like 4K and all this crazy stuff because it's just that good. So optimization is really something that they should be doing a lot more. Tiny Tina's Wonderland is another one where Borderlands 3 runs worse than Tiny Tina's Wonderland, which has the same graphical everything, same engine, but they tweaked it a little tiny bit, optimized it a little bit more, and it runs better. I don't understand it myself. It is something that I have pointed out in benchmarks. Now, I guess for some weird Steam news, Dolphin is coming to Steam. Now, if you don't know what Dolphin is, you probably never sailed the high seas looking for copies of old games. And we only sail those high seas because Nintendo made it difficult to get a hold of them through legal means. Point is, Dolphin is an emulator that is specifically for the GameCube and the Wii. Now, why is that important? Well, because the GameCube and the Wii shared pretty much the exact same chip hardware, and it makes it so that they're both emulatable using pretty much the exact same code. By coming to Steam, you no longer need to sideload it into your Steam Deck. The ROMs, on the other hand, they're saying very clearly, I've got a big note that says legal ROMs only. Do not look for ROMs on the internet. Sorry, my hair got my eye there. That was weird. All right, moving on. Corsair believes it can change power supplies forever. This is actually really cool. So Corsair released a new power supply that actually shifts the modular connectors from the bottom of the power supply to the side of the power supply. Now, this works well in their cases, of course, because Corsair loves their vertical integration, but there are a number of cases with PSU shrouds that I could see this working well in. For example, one of the cases that I did recently was the Fractal Torrent. Love it as a case, but my model particularly had an issue where the PSU cables would pop out the back panel, and it actually got so bad that the adhesive on the back panel came off. I ended up fixing it with some JB Weld, but if that would have come off and I didn't catch it, it would have shattered the glass. With the cables being now flatter than they were before and coming out from the side, I could see that possibly working better in that case. Now, it doesn't work in all cases, but there are definitely some benefits to doing it. And if your build kind of plans around something like that, could be quite cool to use. That being said, I have absolutely no use for it in my current planned build coming out, and the Lufer build would not work with it either. So I'm not going to be taking a look at it anytime soon, but it's not off the table. So speaking of PSU cables, Lian Li, the strimmer, is back, and it's now got the Nvidia connectors on it. Well, I say Nvidia connectors. Eventually, they're going to be on more GPUs, but they are touting tighter bend radiuses on them, and it is a girthy 24-pin looking cable that they've got RGB going through. It looks amazing. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It's a really cool looking cable, and it would look way better than the Nvidia provided one. So I don't see it as a bad thing. I'm glad that this line has continued, as the strimmer line is just cool. And personally, while I haven't used it yet, I could see myself doing a maximalist RGB build, in which I did. That being said, my next build is going to have like no RGB, which is kind of crazy to me. Razer has gotten back into the VR market. Now, a lot of you may not have known that Razer actually was at one point a little bit in the VR market when it came to VR headsets. Mainly when the HTC and the Oculus first came out. They were dabbling with it a little bit. Now, they're selling Quest accessories. Yes, VR has never seemed more gamery than when you put on a Razer branded Meta Quest edge strap and facial interface. Yeah, I don't know what they were doing, but it wasn't the April Fool's Day joke. The April Fool's Day joke was a Razer, and is it wrong that I kind of want it? Actually, that happens a lot with Razer's products. There was also the Razer toaster that I wanted. That thing was cool. In like a stupid way. Like in a really stupid kind of way. And staying on the topic of VR gaming, or well, VR content creation mostly. Does anybody actually game with full body tracking? I feel like it's mainly us content creators. Okay, point is, HTC is changing the game of full body tracking in general. I actually had to change a video that I was working on about full body tracking specifically because of this announcement. HTC has announced and is making and bringing to market a tracking puck that tracks itself. Using inside out tracking, this will allow you to have full body tracking without a PC. And it's going to be enabled from a software level through OpenXR, which means it could hypothetically work on the Quest. It is designed to work with HTC's XR Elite, which is coming out soon-ish, but more importantly, they did make it an open standard so that there could be more full body tracked users in the near future. Point is, HTC is making something awesome, and I can't wait to actually see it. And I possibly might even test it, depending on how it works, because it could be a really good way to have non-VR full body tracking, which is an intended use case of it. And really, they're not the only ones kind of focusing in on full body tracking. Mocappy, which is a interesting piece of hardware by Sony, of all people, looks to be trying to bring full body tracking to your smartphone. Mobile again. Interesting that keeps coming up, actually. Is mobile VR a thing? It was a thing, but then people didn't do it because it wasn't great. Point is, Mocappy seems to be an interesting smartphone companion-based IMU tracker that is being made by a mainstream company. Now, it is being advertised towards Japan primarily because, believe it or not, the primary consumer for these things is actually Japan. That's enough of the tech news stuff. Let's talk about this show and what's going on. And I'm happy you guys made it this far. So, how are you doing? You know, need some cocoa? Anything? No? Okay. So, what's going on with this? Well, I have been racking my brain on how I can get you guys more content and more updates on the content that is coming out. I've been using the channel tab feature, the community tab feature a lot, and you guys are awesome. Like, you vote in like every single poll. I know you guys are very active. I really do appreciate it. And it does let me know that there are people watching. And I realized that I would love to talk directly to you guys a little bit more, mainly because there's just things going on. It's really hard to bring everything up in a video nonchalantly so that like it builds. And I know that my main videos don't necessarily apply to everyone, where this show can kind of just be like a generalized tech news kind of thing. And if you are just a constant viewer of the show, it's a good opportunity for us to have like Q&As, things like that. And so while today's episode does not have a Q&A, I will be asking 4 questions on the community tab a little bit closer to the next one so that you guys have the option to ask questions. I am going to kind of go over a couple of interesting things, though, that I did see in the comments. So somebody actually asked recently, are we going to be opening up a Discord server, or when Discord server, I think was the comment. And yeah, I think I am. I've been contemplating it. I actually have to get with Gamer Guts because she actually knows how to set one up properly. Like, I can put one together. It's not going to be great. But I think that having a Discord and probably having a subreddit put together would be a good way for us to have additional content that is more text-based. So I actually write out every review that I do on our channel. It's like a scripted thing. I don't stick to the script, but I do write one. And it's something that I've been meaning to like come up with a way to share in some way. And so that could be an interesting way to maybe have some of that, some written posts and things like that could be on like a Discord timeline. I also would love to have a section where you guys can like share your builds and your setups. That would be really, really cool. Because I'm sure a lot of you in this community have epic PCs. One guy literally said his monitor setup is like massive with like so many screens. And I would just love to see how you guys have that all set up. So for the most part, I really do want this show to be more of a connection to all of you so that you guys can see everything that is going on. So the show is going to happen once a month. I am moving my schedule to upload on Saturdays for the main video and then Sundays for a secondary video. Now, the secondary videos could be something like this, or I actually have 2 videos that are going to be partnered together. One's full body tracking, the other's fixing full body tracking. And those 2 videos make sense to launch together. And so we're going to start doing that. And I'm going to try to make it bi-weekly. I'm not guaranteeing that I will be able to because I am also currently running Virtual Wolfie, which does currently post 2 videos a week and is moving up to 3 videos a week very soon. That being said, I can kind of pre-schedule everything for Virtual Wolfie and it comes out really quickly. The the rhythm game stuff that I do every Friday is really easy to edit together, really easy to record. Not easy on my body, and I realistically should do it more because it is a good workout. But point is, that channel takes up a little bit of time. And you guys over here are, of course, my main focus because I love this channel and I'm so happy that we have this massive community. So yeah, now something cool coming up. Loofah build that is currently in production. I actually built it once and it was so janky that I'm rebuilding it. I actually had to spend like another $150 on components in order to fix it up. But I have some thoughts about that case. There's going to be a full review on it. And yeah, I have to do the rebuild probably tomorrow. And yeah, I also killed another PSU during the build, which is not great. I learned an important lesson that I hopefully will not be making again. Just note, electric dusters are very, very powerful, especially the data vac. So don't clean not a CPU, but a PSU with them. I somehow fried the low voltage rail of an EVGA PSU. Also, something that happened that was really funny, and I don't know how funny it's going to be for you guys, is I actually got a package from Spring today that I didn't order. So this right here is the kind of stealth hat that I have. It's got our logo just in there. And for some reason, I received a misprint in the mail today that I did not order that's got the white eyes, and I kind of love it. Like, I didn't intend for that to be a part of the design, but it's kind of cool, kind of like ominous. Is that reflective? I can't tell if that's actually like reflective material or not. It looks good on the camera. So now I have a second stealth hat. I didn't order it, but those actually ship the fastest out of all of the things on the merch store right now. This shirt's another one. I launched 3 designs last month. There's this one, which is my current favorite. I have the Weeb one, which actually I should be getting in soon. That one took the longest to ship. And then I also have the Chill shirt, which is just a nice little emblem tee. Those 3 designs launched this month. And in June, we're going to be launching 3 more designs. I'm actually planning on making this a regular thing. Not all of them are going to be like GreaterThanPie. There's actually one planned for June that is a really artsy kind of photo. I wanted to make shirts that I would want to wear. And personally, I've been wearing them, so it's working. But if you want to know anything about them, there's a merch shelf down below in which you can actually buy them. It is through Spring. So I made a poll asking if you guys would like me to see an ARC GPU this year. And you guys said yes. So the A770 is like $200, $300. It's literally the best version of that GPU you can possibly buy. And I'm totally planning on checking it out. It's going to be an interesting one to play around with. And I really wonder if you could run, I'm not even sure how it would work, but run it as just like an encoder GPU. I've never played around with that, but having that GPU inside of this little apartment here would be really interesting. That is going to be the second one that we're taking a look at, though, because the first one I'm getting closer and closer to each day is the 7900 XTX. I have stated that I wanted to do this one. And yeah, let's just say funding for it is only going to take another month, probably, and then I can get it. So probably May, June, you're going to see the unboxing video and then the review probably July, August. And then the build where we liquid cool it is going to be towards the end of the year. And then there will be another video where you guys get to see the liquid cooled performance. So there's a lot planned for that GPU. The A770 is going to come in separately. And I mean, we've even heard murmurings of the next generation of ARC GPUs. So it's kind of interesting and exciting because currently to buy a new GPU, like a brand new GPU, Intel is the $300 range, the entire $300 range if you went by just this generation. So I am excited tentatively, and I'll be testing it after everybody else. So maybe some of the driver fixes like, VR performance will be fixed. That would be cool. And I did mention it briefly, but I am doing an all water cooled build in the NR200P. I do have a video about that coming up. It's recorded. I found that thing fits way more hardware than it looks. And aside from the new Dan case that just came out, I think and actually I still think it's more accessible than the Dan case, but I think hardware wise, it is very impressive on what you're going to be able to do in it. And so I've pretty much spec'd out the entire thing. You kind of have to when you're building something like this. I pretty much know that we're going to use a 7800X 3D. And I know that we're going to be doing the 7900 XTX. And actually, I know how many radiators it's going to be. I know pretty much the entirety of the build. It's just a matter of getting all the parts, because high-end water cooling kind of sucks. It's expensive. Even the fittings are expensive. Like, I'm sure I'm going to be spending well over $150 in fittings alone on this build. But the build itself is going to be really cool. And I am excited to have a mini PC that is all water cooled with that level of hardware. It's just going to be interesting. And that being said, next year, testing platform is changing. We've been using a Ryzen 7 5800X with DDR4 memory on an SSD based system for a little while now. And it's a good test platform still. I do think that it's not going to be bottlenecked too hard, but I do think the 7900 XTX video will show a bottleneck. But we are going to be upgrading that system to AMP5. So we're going to be doing probably an X series motherboard. I'm going to spec it out a little bit higher than it really needs to be. Like, I need fast gaming performance on that one and fast like recording performance, because it'll do internal recording. So it's probably going to have a Ryzen 9. It's going to be a little over spec'd, but we'll be able to swap processors in and out. The goal is to build the test system so that it is like a uniform set of hardware: GPU, CPU, RAM, motherboard, power supply, case, everything. The storage on it, I'm actually going to set it up in hot swap so that I can put Linux, Windows, and also AMD and Nvidia drivers on different OS installs, and also probably Intel install as well. So that will be 3 Windows ones and probably 2 Linux, because I don't think Intel Arc has Linux support yet. So the point is, there's going to be like a hot swap bay with all the drives. The hardware is going to be pretty much unanimous, and then we'll be able to swap one part. And that's an easy way to control the variables, right? So we can change just the GPU over and over again. The CPU will be pasted exactly the same. And we can do that for a bunch of tests, and we'll have the same data set, right? And then if we decide to swap the CPU, we can do that with the same GPU in it and then have that data set. And that will be for the AMD side. And then I'm also planning in the same year, if I can swing it, also building an Intel test system that is going to match it roughly in spec to, be equivalent. And again, probably a little bit overbuilt, but it will be on Team Blue. And again, we're going to do the same thing: AMD, Intel, Nvidia installs for Windows, and then of course the 2 Linux versions. And I'm thinking of trying Mint out just to see how I like it. So point is, there is a change in our testing methodology that will be coming soon. Hopefully we will have 2 test systems by the end of next year. And that actually ended up delaying the super build because I needed to get those test systems out. And yeah, realistically, my production PC and my gaming PC were the 2 that were going to be merged together for the super build. I'm upgrading the gaming PC, and I really don't need to. And I don't really need to upgrade the production PC. And so I'm going to keep the production PC probably the same until year 3 or 4. So it may even skip AM5 and go straight to AM6. Who knows at this point? Point is, yeah, we've got a lot of builds coming that kind of take precedent. And so super build may end up being pushed back probably until I can upgrade again, or if I need to build, say, a PC for some other reason, like the opening of a GreaterThanPie office or something like that, that would be an opportunity to make that build. Also, my desk can't support it. I calculated how heavy it would be with water in it, and I realized that my desk can't support it, and the desk I'm replacing my desk with probably can't support it, which is another project that we're also doing this year. So there's just so much going on this year that the super build, unfortunately, is going to be getting a delay, which not happy about, but yeah, it just has to happen. If you somehow stuck through all of this, seriously consider supporting the channel or supporting the other channel. I'll see you in the next one. Wolfie, out.